Watching, seeing, observing. Who would have thought that such simple actions would be the way to live in the 2020s? Especially during a global pandemic in which going out of your house was almost considered a crime. So, what do we do when we don't have anywhere to go or anything to do? We just watch. We entertain ourselves with anything that's put in front of our eyes. But we can't totally blame the pandemic for that. Let's be honest. A lot of us have spent more time in front of a screen instead of enjoying the beautiful world outside, way before the pandemic even started. We've been using YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram for quite a while now. These platforms are full of videos and photos of the ideal lifestyle, the one that many of us want to live, but are too afraid to even try. And since we can't accomplish that kind of life, we just keep scrolling and watching, feeding our brains with any type of content that seems appealing to our eyes. It's a good method of distraction, I give you that. But haven't you seen a parent give a tablet to their kid just to keep them quiet? And aren't social media platforms so full of content to the point that many people don't need to pay for entertainment anymore? Just go on social media. You can be entertained there for hours without paying a dime. Social media is here to stay, but the way we learn to interact with it today will define the future of humankind, especially when it comes to mental health. According to a Lancet study published in 2018, people who spend more time on social media very late at night are likely to feel more depressed and unhappy. And many more trustful sources, such as the Singapore Medical Journal, have very well identified a link between depression and suicide. Obviously, by looking at this information, we tend to worry about young people's mental health. But the truth is that social media is affecting us all. I guess it's just easy to start with teenagers since they're the ones showing signs of deteriorating mental health in response to their elevated use of social media. Many sources, such as the Pew Research Center, have criticized the way social media is associated with depression, ADHD, insomnia, lower academic performance, and many other problems that make it hard for teenagers to succeed in life. The American Academy of Pediatrics even coined the term Facebook depression, which is when adolescents and teens who spend a lot of time on social media begin to exhibit classic symptoms of depression as a result of the intensity of the online world. Moreover, kids love video games, and that's a topic for another day. But I'll tell you this, spending a lot of time in front of a screen is making it hard for kids to make important decisions. Have you ever skipped through a game to get to the good part? Suddenly, you make it to a point in which you're just like, yeah, whatever, I just want this dude in the game to finish talking so I can continue playing. For example, like Navi in Zelda. A lot of people wanted her to get to the point as quickly as possible just so Link could continue with his adventures, right? Yeah, well, believe it or not, this has an impact on your life. People don't want to listen to instructions. They don't have time for that anymore. They just want to get to the good part without considering all the options available while missing important feedback that will make their lives easier to navigate. And the more they practice this online, the more they get used to this kind of lifestyle. And the same principle can be applied to social media. We are becoming the instant culture. We want to watch, we don't want to read. We want things fast, we want things to happen now, even when it's impossible. And like I said, this problem affects everyone, not just kids. It affects anyone who favors spending time in front of a screen instead of doing other things that are more beneficial. All of these actions have contributed to cyber addiction, the uncontrolled use of the internet. Now, who needs friends when we have the internet, right? Wrong. Who needs real-life interactions when we can use text and emojis to reach out to the people we care about? And who needs real-life social interactions when we can have online interactions? The internet has really made our lives simpler, I give you that. But just like anything else in life, The excessive consumption of the internet can be damaging to us. The International Journal of Preventive Medicine even goes as far as saying that becoming addicted to the internet is almost as bad as becoming addicted to substances. While the internet is not a substance, people can get addicted to the feeling brought by it. It seems like people are no longer present in the real world. The more time they spend online, the less they participate in the world around them. Just look at a group of students in any classroom. A paper published by the American Physiological Society found that social media distraction in the classroom interferes with visual learning in college students. It's very hard to pay attention to that biology experiment when your eyes are glued to someone's Instagram story. And don't even dare to interrupt anyone who's on their phone. Have you seen how angry people get when you try to talk to them and they are on their phone? They get all like, wait until I finish watching this video. It's as if the life on the screen is more important than the life that's happening around them. But if that wasn't enough, people who are overly dependent on the internet are also getting anxious, nervous, bored, and even depressed when they don't have internet. Sometimes they even pass on opportunities to hang out with people in real life just to have some extra screen time. Forget about the real world. It feels as if the new FOMO comes from the fear of missing out on the things that happen online. In fact, the Anxiety and Depression Association of America has a name for this. It's called social media anxiety disorder. Many people even go as far as sacrificing their sleep time just to see if the person on the other side will read their messages, and they won't rest until they get the response they're looking for. How crazy is that? In a way, the world of social media makes us more comfortable with being alone, but the more we isolate ourselves from reality, the more we will dwell on low self-esteem, depression, and lack of social skills. The more we connect to the online world, the more we disconnect from reality. Carrie Kerpen from Forbes Women has great advice for the current problems linked to social media. In a 2017 article, she encourages us to stop comparing our behind the scenes with everyone's highlight reel. Real life is more complicated and intricate than what we see on social media, but this is hard to understand when we've become addicted to the screen. It's as if we force ourselves to believe that the world on the screen is the real world. And addiction is not the only problem with social media though. We have to remember that social media pretty much allows us to create any lifestyle and put on an image for the people on the other side of the screen, even when such an image does not exist. For some people, this actually sounds inspiring and encouraging because you can be anyone you want to be. Haven't we all heard that expression so many times? But it really depends on how you look at it. Because when you can't be someone you're not, you can trick people into believing an alternate and damaging reality. And social media platforms thrive on those tricky and faceless interactions. Grooming, blackmailing, cyberbullying. These are some of the most dangerous interactions that happen in the online world. And unfortunately, these can have damaging repercussions in the real world. The infamous case of Michelle Carter and Conrad Roy is a clear example of that.
This court further finds that the Commonwealth has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that you are a youthful offender.
For those of you who don't know, this case is known as the texting suicide case. And why is that? It's been reported that through a series of text messages, emails, and phone calls, Michelle encouraged Conrad to commit suicide. And I guess it's a very extreme example, but it shows you the power that online interactions can have on someone's mental health and ultimately their overall life. And another dangerous interaction that has threatening consequences is grooming. Social media has empowered creepy adult people to create fake identities to lure young people, gain their trust, control them, and ultimately abuse them. Sure, many people wish they could meet their soulmate on one of these online platforms. And while there are many success stories out there, this is not always the case. In England and Wales alone, 12,925 sexual communication offences were recorded by the police between April 2017 and March 2020. In 8,866 of these cases, the victims' genders were revealed, and 7,434 of them were girls. The National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children reported that Instagram was the preferred platform by many of these aggressors. It's obvious now that the cute stranger in the photos might not be the person you're talking to. And while many people manage to successfully escape grooming without compromising their physical safety, these situations could still damage people's mental health. Sources such as the Universal Journal of Psychology state that the victims of grooming can experience deteriorating effects on their mental health. And just like grooming, any other interaction through social media could have damaging consequences if it's not treated on time. There is cyberbullying, for example. In 2018, the Pew Research Center surveyed teenagers in the US and determined that 1 in 6 teenagers have experienced at least one of 6 forms of abusive behavior online. 42% of them had been victims of name calling. 32% were victims of false rumors, 25% received unsolicited explicit images, 21% were tracked by someone who wasn't a guardian or a parent, 16% of them received physical threats, and 7% had their explicit images shared without consent. But even though many people are now talking about cyberbullying, the problem still hasn't gotten enough attention to punish the authors of such terrible online acts. It seems like pretty much anyone can get away with anything. By allowing us to be whoever we want to be, these online platforms exempt people from taking full responsibility for their actions. We don't need to see who's saying what. If the words penetrate deep into our brains, they could have lasting effects that could prevent us from living the fuller lives we deserve to live. In a way, social media has become a safe space for people who have a hard time interacting with others in real life. But then again, we don't know where these interactions could lead us to. However, the victims of the negative effects of social media should never feel alone. There's always someone out there who can help. That's what professionals are for. They know how to help patients navigate the complicated world of social media and how to best respond to the things that threaten our mental health. And guilt should never be embraced. We all make mistakes and no one is exempt from trusting the wrong person on the wrong platform. If you've made a mistake while being online, just embrace it and work with someone to address any mental issues that have arisen as a result of the misuse of social media. And if you think you haven't abused social media at all, by all means, keep yourself in check. Prevention can go a long way when we are mindful of the way we use these social media platforms. On the bright side, not everything online is bad. In fact, social media has also made a positive impact on mental health. How so? Well, once again, just look at that global pandemic we overcame. Regardless of the thoughts we have on the matter, the one thing we can all agree on is that social media helped us stay connected. People were able to talk to family and friends despite the lockdowns and the physical distance, making distances shorter than ever, even during such a critical time. And even as we move past this time in history, we can still see that social media will help us stay in touch with people wherever we are. So the way we connect through social media should never be taken for granted. Also, studies such as the one cited in the American Journal of Speech Language Pathology in January 2021 indicate that the controlled and supervised use of social media can help patients with brain trauma that are going through rehab. The use of the internet stimulates a major number of regions in the brain, increases work memory, and produces a large capacity of perceptual learning, ultimately leading patients to cope with various stimuli simultaneously. The American Journal of Audiology also looked into the way that the use of the internet can help people who are hearing impaired. By immersing themselves in the world on the screen, people can become distracted from the pain they face in real life. The list could go on and on and on, and of course, we can't forget about the way social media can keep us informed and educated on relevant matters. At the end of the day, the impact of social media on mental health can be positive as well. So, is social media bad for our mental health? That's not the question we should be asking ourselves. Instead, we should look at the way we interact with it and ask, how is it affecting my mental health? Or is it making me a better person? Or is it time for me to step away from the screens for a bit and connect more with the world around me? The answer will be different for everybody, but we can all agree that social media does have an impact on our mental health. In a world that is so dependent on these platforms, it seems almost impossible to give them up. But the one thing we can control is how we interact with them and use them for our improvement.